In this video, I'm going to show you how to make CMS tabs in Webflow using HTMX. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go to htmx.org. We need to get this CDN script, and we're going to paste that into the head of our Webflow project. Now back inside in Webflow, is I've set up my page using client first. I've got a tab section, and inside that tab section, I have got a collection which I've named tab wrapper with tab list and a tab item inside. Below that, I've got just a simple div that I've given a bit of styling to, and I've named that tab content. And if inside in our tabs collection, I've just used some dummy content from Webflow. Inside the tab page, I've used the same element named tab content, and just inside that, I've added some CMS content, just a paragraph and an image. So now we're going to set up our tab so that it will work using HTMX. So inside the tab item, I'm going to add an embed. I'm going to give this embed the class of tab embed. Inside the embed, I'm going to create a button tag. And I'm going to add the name of the CMS item to that tag. Underneath, I'm just going to create a div here, and I'm going to give it the class of tab link. And as you can see, I've already created this, so it's got a bit of styling, a small bit of a hover effect, and we're going to just use that inside in our embed. So we're going to copy the tab link class, and we're going to go into our embed. I'm going to give this a class of tab link. So now you can see that we've got our nicely styled tabs. I'm actually going to give this a role of tab. And then we're going to start adding some HTMX attributes to fetch the data from our CMS. So the first one we're going to use is we're going to use the hxGet attribute. So the hxGet triggers a HTTP request to the server. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in the path we want to fetch the data from. So I'm going to add in tab/slug. The reason that I've added in tab/slug, if I save this here, if we go to our collection, we go into any of our collection items, you can see here that the URL has tab/ followed by the slug. So this one means now that each of these items here are dynamically fetching data from each of these URLs. The next thing is we need to select the item that we want to fetch. So we're going to use the hxSelect attribute, and we're going to target an ID named tab content. What this says now is that we're triggering an AJAX request to this URL, and we're selecting the element with the ID of tab content. So I'm going to go into our CMS page here, and to this tab content element, I'm going to add the ID tab content. Now back here where we're building out our tab, the next thing we need to do is we need to tell HTMX where we want this element that we have selected to go to. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the hxTarget attribute, and the hxTarget attribute uses an ID as well. So we're going to use the exact same ID. We're going to use tab content. So what this is saying now is that we're going to get HTML from this page, and we're going to select the HTML element with the ID of tab content, and we're going to put it into the element with tab content on our current page. So the element here that I've given the class of tab content, I'm going to give that an ID of tab content. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to just see what is happening. So when I click, there seems to be an error. So I'm just going to go back in and see what I've done. You can see here that I've made a spelling mistake. So I'm going to change out the O and just make sure that I have the correct IDs. So tab content, and down here we've also make sure that this has got. So now all have the exact same ID, so this should work. And I click, excellent. So you can see now that we're fetching the element from the CMS pages, but I don't want this to be sitting nested inside the element here. So I want it to actually swap the whole parent. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our custom embed. We're going to use the hxSwap attribute. I'm going to let that equal to outer HTML. We're going to save and publish. Refresh the page. You can now see that on click, the whole element has been replaced. Now, If you see here on refresh, we've got nothing here. So what I want to do is I want this first CMS item to populate this div on page load. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up this element here with HTMX to pull the data from the first CMS item. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the HX get attribute, and that is going to be to the path that we want to fetch the data from. Next, we're going to use the HX select attribute, and in the same way inside the custom embed, we're going to select the element with the ID of tab content. Next, we're going to use the HX target attribute, and again, we're targeting the element with the ID tab content. Next, we're going to use the HX swap attribute, and we're going to use outer HTML in the same way that we used it inside in the custom embed to swap out this whole element. And finally, we need to trigger this on page load. So we're going to use HX trigger, and we're going to use the attribute load. So publish, and then refresh this page. You can see on page load, the first CMS item populates the tab, and we click through, the content is changing. So that's how you set up a CMS tab in Webflow using HTMX. If you have any questions, leave me a comment and I will happily get back to you. Thanks very much.